I'm Larry Bishop, and you're listening to The World Is Wrong podcast.
We're here to tell you how the world is wrong. The world is wrong about Up Against Amanda.
Welcome to The World Is Wrong, an extremely positive podcast where we celebrate films and film artists the world is wrong about. I am one of your hosts, and my name is Andros Jones.
And I'm one of your hosts, and my name is Brian Connolly.
And we're chomping at the bit to talk about maybe the film that the world is the most wrong about.
Yeah, it could be.
So, on this episode, we'll be joined by, or I will be joined, or we as a collective will be joined by my good friend Justin Freet, who introduced me to this film, and we talk at length about it. And then, but Brian, you also have a unique connection to this film that
Yes.
That you were unaware of until I set you with the task of having to watch it.
Yeah. It's a surprise. Let's wait till the end to give this let's talk about it at the end. I don't want to derail the conversation about this movie first. Let's do that when it come in afterwards, after your talk.
Brian Connolly, master of suspense. Just okay. Well, now you really got to listen to the end of this. But first, you got to listen to this scene from Up Against Amanda.
There might be spoilers. There might be spoilers. There might be spoilers.
This is Richard Pierce.
Hi, Richard. It's me.
Me who?
Amanda. You made love to me in your hot tub. Don't you recognize my voice?
Hi. Can you hold on just a second? Hi, Amanda. Sorry about that. Sorry about everything, actually.
What are you talking about?
Well, you know, I mean, we both got a little drunk and we were feeling a little lonely, and I just...
Don't you dare! Richard, I am not the kind of girl that you just screw around with and throw out like the family pussy.
Whoa, Amanda, that's not what I'm saying.
Then what are you saying? I fell for you. In a big way. I love you, Richard.
Well, that's really very flattering. Hold on a minute.
I don't remember hearing you make any complaints in the hot tub.
Why'd you lock the door?
Did I lock it?
Look, I'm going to the store. You need anything?
Maybe I should just tell your wife what happened and let the two of you sort it out.
Who are you talking to?
Credit card company, just a, big promotional deal.
Ugh. I just hang up on him. You're way too nice. I'll see you later.
Amanda, are you still there?
I'm always here for you, Richard.
Look, why don't we meet somewhere? Let's just...
For lunch?
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever you want.
Oh, that's more like it.
Up Against Amanda is the Chinatown of shot-on-video erotic thrillers. A low-rent miracle of a movie from writer-director Michael Rizzi, ostensibly cut from the same cinematic fabric that yielded hits like Fatal Attraction, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and Poison Ivy. This entree into the genre follows our anti-heroine, Amanda, from a sexually abusive childhood to her institutionalization and grooming as a sex slave by her corrupt psychiatrist, all in the opening minutes of the film. This sets up Amanda's murderous quest for freedom and her dangerous fixation on her neighbor, a mild-mannered rock critic married to an aspiring adult contemporary blues singer who gets wrapped up in Amanda's erotic web of intrigue. If this premise fails to inspire you, welcome to the club. I was similarly uninterested in the aforementioned blockbuster examples of the murderous vixen trope, but Up Against Amanda is way more than the sum of its admittedly meager parts. The cinematic mastery on display in this low-budget digital video production is both a challenge to better-funded directors who can't muster a shred of the invention this movie delivers in practically every frame, and a challenge to those who think that just because they don't have millions of dollars, they can't make a real movie. If you take your craft as seriously as Michael Ritzie and his team so obviously do, this film is proof that great cinema flows from the talent and commitment of its creators, regardless of the quality of the materials they have to work with. I owe my discovery of this gutter masterpiece to my friend and colleague, Justin Freet, who joins us now from Seattle, Washington, to discuss Up Against Amanda. Welcome to The World is Wrong, Justin. So, how is the world wrong about this film?
Well, first, Andros, it's great to be here with you on the World is Wrong podcast. Thanks for having me.
I know that you live in a constant state of wonder at how wrong the world is and can be around film. So we are on the same page so often that we even sometimes make films the world is wrong about together.
Yes, indeed. I love it. The world is wrong so much. I mean, like what? 9 times out of 10, it's wrong. It's very frustrating, but it's nice to be the one that's right. I kind of like being one of the few that are right. You know, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's an elitist perspective, I suppose.
Yeah, gutter elitism. It's
gutter elitism, exquisite squalor.
Yeah.
So, Up Against Amanda. Yeah, man. I discovered this movie when we were in the first months of the initial COVID quarantine lockdown last year, and it was on a streaming service that also the world is wrong about. Extremely wrong. I'd love to do a show with you about Tubi.
Just Tubi, yeah.
Just Tubi. I mean, it deserves it. I mean, it is to this. I think quite a few people discovered it during the COVID, just because you're looking for something to watch. And I mean, I still hear it being kind of disparaged or backhanded compliments about the amount of wild, disparate content it has on the platform. And I think it's really underappreciated. But I don't want to digress too much. Up Against Amanda was something I fell upon, and I had this thing where I was like, look, man, you have nothing else going on. You're going to watch a movie. You have to commit to it. Whatever you click on, you have to commit to, because that's one of the things about streaming films is that you can stop and start them whenever you want. You can watch the first 30 minutes and then just never finish the movie ever, discard it. And I didn't want to be, I wanted to have the experience of forcing myself to watch a movie, even if once I got into it, I wasn't digging what was happening. And I think we've talked about my experience with Up Against Amanda. I think this is important to it, is it was a living experience. It was from the moment I clicked on this movie, Up Against Amanda, I never heard of it. It looked like early 90s junk, just like you were talking about, like this woman scorned, like Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I thought it was going to be like Hand That Rocks the Cradle or The Crush, right? Which are other 90s classics of like a hot young woman that fixates on a guy or gal and basically makes their life hell. And then it always goes to like the classics like Fatal Attraction and all that. But as I was starting this movie, the first couple minutes, I'm like, oh God, this looks like I'm not going to want to watch this. And what when I say it was like an organic living, it was like a living, breathing movie. It was this movie that was pulling me in almost like it was sentient. Like it was like when I was rejecting it. It's like it knew that I was rejecting it. And then it was like pulling me in. It was a back and forth because we talked about this before, the opening title sequence. The opening titles aren't finished until I think something like 8 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
10 minutes into the movie.
Yeah. And they're all very floaty, watery,
Yes.
bad digital effects. Like
Bad digital,
like the
early
beginning
90s.
of a porn film, really.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys remember Video Toasters? It's like those kind of graphics, right? From the early 90s. Yeah, and it goes on forever, but it tells you this huge. It's the equivalent of, I guess, a sort of like the cold open of the movie.
Yeah.
Is during the credits, and it tells this whole story about Amanda leading up to where the rest of the movie is taking place chronologically. And we see Amanda when she's a little girl, and she's being, it's tough subject matter. Technically, she's a little girl that's being abused by this awful, I think, stepfather, and something happens, and she gets sent to a facility, like a hospital, a mental hospital, an orphanage. I don't know exactly what it was, but she was institutionalized. And then she gets released, and we meet her. We see her, the arbitration or whatever you call that, where you go up and you try to get her. She's going to be released, and does she get to go back out into society with regular people? And we see all that, and we hear. All of a sudden, we get this voiceover. You get the first 5 minutes. It's just these images that are, again, they pull you in spite of yourself, and then you have. Now we have a voiceover. Now we have Amanda addressing the audience directly, which is kind of can be a cop-out. It immediately bonds you with the person that's doing the voiceover as an audience member, right? But the way they do it, that was the right decision. Because throughout this film, you establish this connection with Amanda early on with this 8-minute credit sequence and the voiceover and seeing what she went through
and the shots and the way, like, there's just
the shots
a
are
style.
great.
There's a style underneath this bad video credits. I mean, the bad video animation credits and the sort of whole video the whole video quality of everything. You just kind of, I love how you say it. It's like it knows that it's bad, and so it's working extra hard to be great. To wink at you and say, "Hey, no, I know we're dressed like shit, but underneath this, there's genius."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's very, very true, and it is. The shots are great, and they're not. And this is part of the experience of watching this movie. Is it takes you a while. I mean, it's not like within the first 8 minutes, first act, I wasn't still completely sold.
No way.
It went into but it kept surprising me, and it kept showing me that it had, like, this director Michael Ricci.
I found this documentary footage, not documentary, like a news program,
right?
An NBC, I think, news program did coverage of a film that he put out when he was 18 years old, called Teacher's Pet. No, 16 years old. When he was so in 1981, he was 16 years old. And he made a film called Teacher's Pet that got an actual release and then coverage by this NBC affiliate. And they pronounce his name Michael Ritzy. So
it's okay, Michael Ritzy. And so this is 1981. This guy was 16 in 1981. So this was early 80s. He was in high school, and he did this. He made his first feature film, and they did the whole, like you said, they had the limo
and that's
pull up.
Not even on his IMDb. I mean, I guess he doesn't consider it worthy. I went back and started watching his film Terror Eyes, and it's got everything that Up Against Amanda has. This guy has he has it's also pretty bad, but it kind of has watching it, I was thinking, well, why doesn't he, Evil Dead is pretty bad. in a lot of
Right.
ways, but there's the same quality, and you just feel like someone threw fuel on that fire, the Evil Dead fire, and not on Michael Ritzy's fire. But it seems
Yeah.
like there is the same kind of quality of
Enthusiasm.
wow, enthusiasm and just making something that is in some ways not worried about it's in some ways it's not worried about how good it is, and in other ways it is super concerned with how good it is.
Right. Well, that's the thing. So this is like when we say bad, this is not a so bad it's good movie.
No.
I want to make that clear.
But we don't do that on this podcast. We don't
Right,
do so
exactly.
bad it's good.
Exactly. And when I pitched it to you initially back in the day, after I'd seen this, and I had seen, I was like, this isn't it's a very low budget movie, but it's the kind of thing that in the 90s you would see, like, straight to video for sure, maybe even playing on like the equivalent of the Lifetime channel or something like that. Like it felt like cable. There was enough of a budget that these are professional actors, and they have a lot of sets. Or maybe sets is the wrong word. They get a good amount of coverage, and they have a
The
decent
coverage
amount
in
of,
it is phenomenal. Like
Yes.
if you really know filmmaking, so much of how this film works is in the editing, which Michael Ritzy edited it as well.
It felt very intentional. It felt very much like he got all the yes, like what you were saying about the shots earlier. There isn't a lot of fat. It's like it's very lean for being it doesn't insist upon itself. the cinematography or the videography, it's shot on video.
Mm-hmm.
Shot on at the time would probably have been a professional video, like I would almost say maybe like local news camera, video camera quality, but he knew how to light it. Oh, that's the other thing. It's lit. You're right. I wish this guy had gotten the chance to shoot this on film, because he shoots the camera angles, the coverage, the blocking, there is, I don't know if there's so few missteps in how he unfolds the story, and the actors are great, and Jason Bateman's sister, I guess.
No, not Jason Bateman. What are you kidding me?
What is it? Not Jason
Priestley.
Bateman.
Jason.
Wait, is it Luke Perry's sister? Right?
Come on, cut it out. It's
Is it Jason Priestley?
Priestley's sister.
All right, they're all the same
Justine
guy. Okay.
Priestley. And by the way,
all the
considering
same
that we're
guy.
talking about this film that she's in, which might be better than any movie that Jason Priestley has done, maybe we should
I would say yes on that.
that
Yeah.
that she stands on her own too. Very strong, sturdy legs, and we should just address her as who she is, the great Justine Priestley in this film. Again,
Justine Priestley.
she should, it's confusing because Justine Bateman and Jason Bateman
that's a
and
lot. That's an
Justine-
understandable glitch.
I
that
understand,
I said
and I would love to
Jason
see.
Bateman.
I would love to see a movie right now starring
With
Justine
Justin?
Bateman,
Yeah,
Justine Bateman,
yeah.
and Justine Priestley standing on
Oh,
their
yeah.
own, kicking their brothers' butts. So
exactly.
she is a tour de force in this.
She's so that's what it is. She's a tour de force. She carries this movie on her shoulders, on her delicate, porcelain shoulders.
Okay.
She's such a
okay, creepy man.
she's an attractive woman.
Yes, of course. Yes,
I
she
find-
is. She
I find her attractive.
wields her beauty as a weapon in this film in ways that
She's
film
so
just-
spunky. Yeah.
and just the way that the director, like you say, like the performances are great, but because it's such a highly edited film,
Yeah.
it really is the director. I feel the director in the performances, and like you're talking about the lighting, like you shot on video. There should be some embarrassing shots in terms of lighting in this, but it is so well rendered. in every shot. I'm watching it while we're talking now, and just like indoor shots and outdoor shots during the days, and where shadows fall, stuff you don't really think about unless it's off, and then it takes you right out of it.
It's very atmospheric. It's very simple but atmospheric. Correct. Like when she's in the hospital getting released, it feels like a cold and personal, conference room in a hospital or whatever, where the doctors are analyzing her. And when she's seducing our hapless male lead, I forget his name, the guy that looks kind of like David Carradine and Tom Cruise got smushed together. What was that guy? What was the character's name? All this
David
stuff.
DeWitt. That's
David
playing
DeWitt.
Richard Pierce. A great.
He plays Richard Pierce.
A great name for because he's a piercing dick. But
he is surprisingly sympathetic for somebody that fucks up in that way that only these movies, people. This movie, I want to clarify that the movie doesn't reinvent the genre in any way, shape, or form. It's very boilerplate, but that's kind of why it's so impressive, because everything else, the acting is vivid and alive and vital. People make a meal out of their scenes, especially Justine Priestley. And then there's also the details, the things that the character Amanda does in her very playfully evil, master plan. I mean, she's so joyful. I think we talked about this.
Yes.
Want to make really clear, she is technically the villain, but she is the main character. We follow her most of the time, and sure enough, I so much was Team Amanda. I'm so much on her side.
Yeah.
And it's very satisfying. It's a very satisfying story, because even though it's so simple and boilerplate, it's like the psycho hottie. She owns it, and she's so always grinning, always having a good time. Whether she's trying to poison Pierce, Richard's girlfriend with Drano?
His wife, Lori Pierce.
His wife with Drano. I mean, and also the comparison between the wife and Amanda. I mean, there's no contest. I would choose Amanda in a second. They're both very beautiful women, but Amanda's filled with joie de vivre, and she's a very exciting woman. And
Karen Grosso, or I'm thinking that's her name. Karen Grosso is Lori Pierce. Is a conflicted and confusing role, and we can get into discussing that a little bit. But let's stay with Justine Priestley for the moment.
Anyway, Justine Priestley, she carries the movie, and the reason she carries it, it's like almost obviously there's a lot of effort being applied, but it feels in a sense it's effortless, because the character is so entertaining that's why she's able to carry it. Like, it's just, you just love this character and her dolls and her very functionally ingenious. This is another thing, in movies like this where there's someone plotting and there's convenient misunderstandings and all this stuff that, contrivances, you could say, that make the plot work and move ahead. Amanda she does things that are very, very smart. She gets it. She seems like a fully realized human being. She's nuts. She's borderline personality disorder, at least. She kills. She's a murderer. But she is functional. She's definitely a functional person, and she gets it. Like, she takes note of the video camera. She takes note of her plans.
The dog.
The dog takes note of the dog. There's like everything
Spoiler
has.
Spoiler
Yeah.
alert, folks. If you're troubled by the demise of canines,
Yeah.
you may have to choose between your love of Amanda and of that adorable dog. But something
Right.
sick, and both Justin and I can look past it and still follow this woman into the depths of hell that she is about to take this whole block of people into.
Right, which makes me, bringing up the dog makes me think about another thing that when I was watching it the first time, like I said, for the first act, I was fighting I was pulling away and being pulled in at the same time. I was like, I don't want to watch this.
Was that the straw that broke the doggy's back when she killed the dog, and you were like,
no,
okay,
not at all.
I'm in.
No, I think I was in when she killed the doctor. I mean, I was in already. I was in from the beginning. I was in denial. Let's put it that way. I was already a sucker for Amanda and for this movie pretty within the opening titles that go on for 8 minutes, right? I was in it. I was ride or die without knowing it, I think.
Yeah.
But yes, about the point when she started taking people out and taking out the little dog and once she started getting going, I had completely signed up for the ride. And one of the things that was really impressive, the dog thing makes me think of this, is I don't want to say meticulous because that feels like an overstatement, but the plotting, first of all, it was consistent. The movie's consistent. It has a very steady hand in terms of the story and how it's, like you said, how it's edited, and it feels very assured of the tone and the pacing, and the callbacks, the Chekhov's whatever, guns, dogs, doctors, dolls, all the things that are in there always pay off, and that's one of the things I was so impressed with, because like you said, we do love movies. I watch movies all. I love them. I make them, and you and I make them, and I am a little bit overly critical sometimes. Like, I've been with my kid and we've been watching a movie or a TV show that's excellent, like Mr. Robot or something, and I can't help but like notice things that are, even if they're just tropes, that I think, oh, this seems like something that this show could do without. It doesn't have to indulge in these tropes. It doesn't have to do this or whatever. Up against Amanda, so I kind of get in my own way sometimes enjoying certain movies and shows. But this was something where very early on I realized I was in good hands and these people knew what they were doing. And the scene with the doctor, where she kills her doctor, is so gnarly.
Her tormenting, abusive.
Oh, her attorney, doctor or attorney?
No, it's the doctor.
It was the doctor.
It's the doctor who like basically got her out of the institution so that he could set her up as a sex slave in this little house that she now inhabits from Titan Real Estate, which I just think,
it's perfect. She gets the house. Yeah, I love it. The whole thing. He gets the house from this old, like, senile woman that he's another one of his patients. Gets her to sign the rights over to him. Then signs that, basically gives the house to Amanda so that he can keep her there as his little like sex doll. Yeah, and he has her doped up, drugged up. Yeah. Exactly.
He's not a good guy.
He's not a good guy.
So when you say she kills her doctor, it makes it sound like generally people have good associations with doctors. She totally flips the script on this purely evil dude.
Yeah. And he's out of his depths. He doesn't realize he's dealing with Amanda. He's up against Amanda. He didn't realize.
Amanda. Yeah. And that's one of the other things that I at the beginning, when I said that it was the Chinatown of shot to video erotic thrillers.
Yeah.
It's because I learned about cinematic language from that film. So a friend pointed out, a more sophisticated viewer pointed out, watch Chinatown and just look for all of the water imagery. Like, this movie is all about water, and the movie, the story is about water, and then throughout, just look at how many fishes and water scenes, and like how much that is being communicated throughout the film in ways that you might not notice the first time through, or even ever if someone doesn't point it out to you. And this film, well, first of all, it does that with water, definitely.
Oh, yeah.
But it also does it with Up Against Amanda as a theme. There's something that it's doing with these flared lights and stars that become stars as a visual theme throughout it. The really inventive use of cinematic language throughout this that comes out on continued watches is where that comparison comes from. And I remember from an earlier conversation that you had a pretty unique insight into the use of the way that the film has amplified just its own title, as you were just alluding to just now, that the doctor is up against Amanda, but there's other ways that expresses itself in the film, right?
Oh yeah, you're up against Amanda, and you're out of your depth because she's gonna triumph every time, and you're also in some cases up against Amanda physically in a way that's one of the best. I think you're referring to one of my favorite sequences. I think, again, so effective version of a sequence we've seen in many countless movies, where the hapless Richard, he's feeling neglected by his wife. She's out on some, she's performing out in Vegas, and he feels very alone, and he's this poor little white boy. I don't know why I said that part, but he's exactly the character that we're supposed to sympathize with Richard. And we sort of do because he's such a schmuck. But he's in his hot tub. The hot tub, water imagery. Hot tub is a recurring motif. Yeah. Or a recurring, there are recurring sequences at the hot tub. And the water is obviously a motif. And Amanda shows up and she seduces him. And it's the same thing we've seen a million times. Gets in the hot tub with him. But I got to tell you, it felt... You can feel it. You could smell it.
It's a genuinely erotic scene without it's not erotic because they're naked. It's not erotic because it's erotic because of the performances and the way it's shot and
extended shot. These extended intimate two-shot of these people. You do not see gratuitous nudity at all. In fact, I don't think you see anything but in this entire movie, but like side boob a couple times and a couple butt shots. But yeah, she's pushing up against him. And I gotta tell you, it is one of the few moments in the movie where I really did relate with Richard, and I'm not being funny, because you get it. Like, he's a married man. His wife is, traditionally beautiful. These kinds of movies, frequently you want to yell at the screen and go, idiot, don't get involved with this psycho, right? Like, what are you doing, right? And that's what these movies at their best, the big budget, with known stars and shot with, millions of
Michael Douglas movies.
Exactly. They I am thinking a lot of The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, which I saw a long time ago, but I remember that people were doing things like, you can neutralize this threat pretty easily just by being, on top of shit and not making stupid decisions. But when she's in that hot tub with Richard, when Richard's in the hot tub with her, I should say, I feel for that guy, because how could you not give in to her, to Amanda, when how she does it and how assured she is. This woman is a boss. She is a extremely confident and competent manipulator, and she's a force of nature, I think is one of the things you said. It's amazing, and it's a great erotic scene. Like it's very sexy. It's also very it's like you gotta put your hands up and go, yeah, I do the same. I think I do the same. I'm completely against cheating and all that. I don't think there's any need for that. You can just tell someone, hey, I want to move on from you. There's no need to cheat on people. But when you have Amanda pushing up on you in your hot tub and whispering in your ear, and it's it gets it. It's very what's the word, Andras? It's not. It's very sensual, but it's you feel like you're there. You feel like you're Richard, and
it's visceral.
Amanda's up against you.
Yeah.
It's very evocative.
Yeah. Okay. Let's leave it to the viewers to find their particular relationship to that scene. But let's talk a little bit more about.
That's when I turned the movie off. Was that scene? That was all I needed.
Yeah,
Andras. I was spent.
I don't think that's true.
I felt weird after that scene. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
So there is another kind of star in this film, in that we have Reggie Bannister from Phantasm playing a member of the band, a member of Laurie Pierce's band. And let's talk a little bit about this band. They are the music in this film is one of those things I love to ask the director about, because Reggie Bannister is in the movie playing in the band. So you got to and he's a musician. And I understand this. I'm a musician and an actor. And if someone asked me to be in their low budget movie, I would try and get my music into it. I'd be like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it for nothing. If you work a band plot in it and I get to have my band in and we get to shoot stuff, and I'll do that. Right. And I can see that happening. And the band, this guy's supposed to be this rock critic, and the band is very, well, again, speaking of my own age group, it's just very white, middle-aged, middle of the road.
It's a bar band. It's not even. It's
not
a bar
even
band.
a bar band. It's like an adult contemporary bar band at a bar, like near an airport,
or like a bowling alley that also has a stage and a bar. Yeah,
and part of I don't like. I know we're supposed to celebrate this, and I guess I as I watch it now,
it's bad.
I grow but I've grown to enjoy the band aspect of this more and more because it's so realistic. Like that she has this delusion that this band is going to be huge, and the movie expects us to accept that this rock critic has hooked up with this woman who is just so clearly. It's not that she's not good. She just has massive delusions about the reality of life as a musician. And
this couple is a few years past where they should have been thinking about, having some kids and
or even
being serious people.
You could have just had the thing where she was really committed to playing her music as a bar band. And maybe if he had been like, I think it would have worked a little bit better if he had been like, I want you to be successful. If
but you wouldn't have the whole thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Where she goes off out of town or out of nowhere. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to ask you about Reggie Bannister, because this is one of those things where I've seen him at conventions because of the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff.
Right.
And I've never seen Phantasm. I saw the preview for the original Phantasm, and it's still one of the scariest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
Phantasm 2 I've seen, and I loved it.
Can you just tell? Could tell me the story of Phantasm, Justin?
Okay, well, I'm not a Phantasm head, as they call him.
Phantasmaniac.
Phantasmaniac. Yeah.
Phantasmanian devil.
Right. Let's say we'll figure out an even better one by the end of the show, I think. But yeah, Phantasmaniac is pretty good, man. And people love those movies. They love, what's the guy? The fucking Angus Scrimm is the, anyone out there that might have a loose, vague maybe not everyone's seen Phantasm. The main bad guy, the boogeyman in it, is played by this character actor named Angus Scrimm. All the actors are very, in Phantasm, are very, like, you know, memorable. And, Andros, do you know the name of the director of Phantasm? Can you look it up while we're doing this?
Okay, yeah.
Because he's done some great, he did Bubba Hotep, he did John Dies at the End.
Oh, really?
He's done some really, he's done a lot of, he did a couple episodes for Tales of Horror, the Showtime, what was it called? Tales of Horror, where all the directors like Tobe Hooper and Wes Craven, everybody got together and did these basically little short, basically like Twilight Zone horror.
Don Coscarelli.
The guy is visually just goes hard and is a real, I think he is a visionary with horror. And the Phantasm movies, I'm not an expert, but I know it's about this kid, and I think he finds this, it's either a book, kind of like in Evil Dead, where they have the book and you say something and the demons come out.
Also in Terrorize, the first
Terrorize
film from
Terrorize.
Yeah, Michael Ritchie.
So I don't really, you know what, I'm going to be straight up. I don't remember why these people get sucked into the fucking Angus Scrimm character. See, I don't even know enough about this movie, but there's these little demons that come out, and he has these orbs that's these metallic orbs that float up and sprout like these blades. Anyway,
that's what scared me. That's what
yeah. Oh yeah, it's disturbing. It's disturbing as fuck. And he's kind of like a Freddy Krueger-y guy, but he's a living man. I think one of the things about the movie is he's a ghoul. The boogeyman character is a ghoul that just looks like a creepy funeral director guy. Looks like just like a creepy guy that works at a cemetery or something. He has a suit. The Tall Man. I think he's called the Tall Man. And anyway, the actor you're talking about, what's his name again?
Reggie Bannister.
Reggie Bannister. Again, I'm not on the computer here. Reggie Bannister is a very important character because he's the only actor besides Angus Scrimm, who plays the Tall Man, the only other actor that's in I believe in all of the Phantasms, or at least all the ones directed by
Don Coscarelli.
The original Don Coscarelli. And at first, he's just this sort of, the first movie, he's just this kind of a goofy, overage, trying to seem young, kind of like a less attractive version of the character in Dazed and Confused, played by Matthew McConaughey, right? In the first movie, if that character is basically, it's the same guy, it's just not nearly as, GQ handsome, right? And he's balding with the long ponytail, and he has this sort of goofy, he's like the uncouth best friend of the lead character's older brother, okay? And everyone dies in the first movie except for the kid and this goofy best friend of whatever. Again, this guy. I'm so sorry, the actor you're talking about.
Reggie Bannister.
Reggie Bannister. He plays like he's not even like a family member. He's a buddy of the kid's older brother. And by the second movie, he's the only tether that this final boy character has, because everyone in his family has been killed by the Tall Man and all these little demons. And so by the second movie, Reggie Bannister has become hugely important to the narrative of the Phantasm arc, the journey, because he's like, and he's no longer very goofy. He's like a very, very capable survivalist. He's very much like Ash. He's sort of the Phantasm version of Ash from Evil Dead. Yeah. And where this character, but it goes the opposite way. with Ash got less and less serious and more funny and cartoonish and goofy, and Reggie Bannister gets more and more capable and grizzled, and he still has the ponytail with the bald spot, and he still plays guitar, and he still has this sort of a layabout, but in these movies he's so important to the movies. He's arguably more important than the main protagonist. So that was what was interesting about you telling me that was the same actor, because I didn't catch that when I watched Up Against Amanda. And he has almost nothing to do in Up Against Amanda, Reggie Bannister.
Other than get poisoned by...
Other than get a great death scene. Yeah.
He gets to play his music, he gets a great death scene, and he gets one line, which is... so there's one of the things that gets set up at the beginning of the movie is our friend Dick Pierce doesn't make it to his girlfriend's or to his wife's gig on time, but he gets someone from a record label to be there, and after the gig, the movie's setting up his wife as being sort of a shrew, driving him towards Amanda, and she's she's like mad at him because he didn't get there on time, and then he tells her that the record label lady was there, and she's like, but she left early, and he's like, but she really liked it. And then instead of like letting that be okay, she's like, aren't you happy for me? And she's just really, it's really sad. There's something about that particular scene, because I hate that kind of stuff, but if you check out the lighting, the way that scene is lit, like what he's able to grab just out of the back of this club on some marina somewhere, and they're fighting. They're shooting at night. They're dealing with it's not an easy thing to get this, and they get it. And
they kill it.
But then she's really annoying, and then they go back in, and as they're going in, Reggie Bannister says to our friend Dick,
"You missed an awesome set, dude."
Right.
That's his line.
Right, which is crazy, which is really crazy, because Reggie Bannister is like arguably the equal, at least in stardom, to Justine Priestley.
He's definitely that's what I mean. He's enough of a star for this that it's like there's somewhere where they're connected, and it's enough of a name that you try and squeeze it into your movie, and if you get he's willing to do it to be in the band, and so they have to have this band, and then the band is this band. It's one. I don't want to say that it's so bad it's good, but it is something.
Here's what it is.
Here's about it.
Yeah, it's very. It's I don't think I have the words to put. There's something about the alchemy of this movie and all the movies we love, and I'm sure most of the movies you guys cover, all the movies that you guys cover on The World Is Wrong, any movie that any of us love, there's something about it's not the trees, it's the forest, and it's the combination of elements. And this movie, like you're talking about, that the whole thing with the wife, and she's shrill and unpleasant and neglectful when she needs to be, so that we can have Richard feel, he's vulnerable and giving into his worst impulses, his lesser angels, or his whatever you want to call it. But it works because you don't the stuff that happens that is contrived, and it's like you said, that scene where the woman or the boyfriend, the girlfriend is upset at the other person, and the other person is sort of hapless and like, I'm sorry I didn't get here in time, but everything worked out. And it's like she's really unnecessarily, he didn't do anything wrong. He was stuck in traffic. He was stuck in frickin' traffic.
He got the record at label lady there.
Yeah, and now he's the bad guy because he was stuck in traffic. Meanwhile, the girl goes off and completely is such a
like she doesn't want to be associated. Yeah, she doesn't want to be associated with him. She's like,
she doesn't want them to know that she's married. Yeah. She doesn't want. She said in my, she's such. I think the term my grandmother used to, flibberty gibbet. She becomes this this like on a dime, this character didn't seem like this, but you know, she all of a sudden becomes, at first it's like he's the silly one, he's the playful one, ducking under the water of the hot tub and sucking through the air hole and all that, and scaring her in the first scene where we introduce this couple, and she's like she's like the rational, mature one. She's like, "What's wrong with you? You're such a goof," and then she becomes this extremely
because the movie needs it. The movie needs it, and it does it. But it does it, and it works. I think in part because the band is so aggressively mediocre.
Exactly. That's it. That's what that's the thing. It's like, it's so hard to. This is one of those things where this movie, the way I'm trying to describe, and you said it perfectly, the band, the elements, the little elements, the recipe of why this works is very intentional. It's, you know, that these people know what they're trying to get across. That is the key to any piece of art or piece of literature. You know, literature is art, film is art, any storytelling, any of this stuff. When you know the person, whether or not you're loving the story, whether or not it's your cup of tea, if you can tell, you can feel confident, comfortable, almost safe in the hands, or some people would say not safe. You feel like this filmmaker is able to manipulate you in a way that you don't want. These guys, these people, these folks know what they're doing. And so even this contrived thing where just for convenience, the wife becomes this very unpleasant, you know, mate, unpleasant spouse. She's not cool. It is on cue, but it works. It works so much better than in other movies that try to make it seem like it's well written. There's so many movies that think they're creating something brilliant and insightful, and they're not. And that's why we have this kind of jaded, cynical attitude towards some of these tropes. But when a movie like Up Against Amanda indulges in these tropes, but shows you why they exist. Why are they timeless? Why do they work? Why do they push the buttons? When Amanda kills Reggie Bannister, not intentionally, she meant to kill the wife. It's so satisfying because there is you're rooting for Amanda, but you don't want the wife to get killed because you know that's just like a nightmare. Like, the wife dies, and then I think she was going to like do something with Richard that was going to fuck his life up. The whole thing is very like disturbing, but the way they do it, it's like you trust the movie to not kill the wife and kill Reggie Bannister instead. You don't know that that's going to happen, but when it happens, you're like, yeah, not that I want Reggie Bannister to die, not that I really like the wife. It's just that it knows when to release the tension in the right way or to amp up the shock in the right way.
Are there any other particular highlights or things about the film you feel like are important to, you know, highlight or direct people's attention towards?
I think we've covered the fact that this is these Michael Ricci and the actors have chops. They know what they're doing, and it's very intentional. And all the scenes work, and the pacing is on point. And so we've already touched on that, and we've talked about a few of the things we really liked, individual scenes or moments. Something that always sticks with me, and it's not my favorite part of the movie, but this kind of in a nutshell is why I love this movie, is there's a point in the climax of the film where Amanda has been shown. Amanda is full boogeyman now. Like Amanda is now, you know, she's seduced. She's secretly killed a bunch of people and gotten away with it, and killed dogs and all this, gotten away with everything. But then she finally goes tilt, and she's stalking the couple now. They both know that she's a danger, you know.
Yeah,
and
we didn't mention she's been surveilling them with early surveillance technology. There's a lot of early internet.
There's a lot of early internet stuff, yeah.
And early electronics, like early 21st century electronics going on here. And so, Yeah. So anyway, go on. Yes.
Yeah,
as far
yeah.
as the stalking.
But that's the thing that's kind of great about the movie is that, you know, it's one of these movies that that shows you what you need to see, which a lot of much more successful, lauded filmmakers don't quite have that inherent knack, like in fight sequences of some big budget movies where you don't know it's just this quick cut stuff where you don't know what's happening, who's hitting who or whatever. It's just a flurry of activity, like the Greengrass effect, what's his face? Greengrass. It does the Bourne movies. It's like, and similar with these kinds of thrillers, like you could see it being cut together in a way where it's kind of covering up that they don't know how to convey information expediently. And this movie with the surveillance stuff, there's a whole sequence that you could say you don't need that sequence. You could say that sequence is kind of boring, kind of dry, but it's not. It's this, for me, where Richard, when he's still very innocent, he doesn't realize he has this predatory Amanda after him so much. Maybe he does realize, but it's not in the danger zone yet. And she's asking him about his surveillance camera that he has that is sort of skewed into her backyard, right? Where her pool is or whatever. And
where her devious garden is.
Where her devious garden filled with, yeah, it's so great. And he walks Amanda through and the audience through how his, at the time, was probably state of the art, video surveillance. Like he pulls up, on the computer and he has all the little mini screens with the time codes and all this, and he describes it. He walks you through it. He walks you through how he has the floppy, he records it onto a disc, and then he, like that whole thing.
And the software, the software comes from the Industrial Eyes Corporation. I love that it's Titan Real Estate and Industrial Eyes Corporation.
Yeah,
again,
good
just
stuff.
like little details that just
you like that.
Tweak you on this archetypal level. It's very nice.
Yes, it's very nice. It's a fully fleshed out world, and yes, it's nice. You like that stuff. The thing about that scene where he's showing her how he's showing her exactly how to hack his system and to fuck with it. And then she goes out and then she immediately gets the same, right? She buys the same equipment from the Industrial Eye and all this. But that's the thing about this movie. As I'm talking about, I'm realizing Amanda is the audience surrogate in this movie. It's very fascinating. The reason why big reason why this movie works is because the antagonist is, I think we're supposed to be sympathetic also to the Richard and to the victims and all that, some of the victims. But no, the audience is, we're with Amanda. And so when things are happening, like someone's explaining how their early 90s surveillance equipment works, we're Amanda listening along with, we're with her, where she's our surrogate. The scene that I was going to bring up that I don't want to forget, and it's just not even my favorite scene, but something that says it all. It's when she's in the third act, she's chasing after the couple. They're in, I think, the backyard of where the hot tub is. Very important. Chekhov's hot tub, and Richard is running from Amanda, and he scrambles over this fence, and she shoots him in the ass. And she shoots him, and it doesn't kill him. He's very awkwardly scrambling over this fence. He's like, you can feel the fear. It's palpable, the fear. He's a panicked, scared man. He's very clumsy and flailing, and he's scrambling over this thing. She shoots him in the ass, and he goes, "Ow!" And just it's something about that's so real. He falls off the thing, and it's just so like, you go, yeah, man, like he's not dead. He's just so hapless. He's so out of his depth, and And just the choice of having him awkwardly try to get out and her shoot him, but it goes into his butt cheek and it's super painful. And then he falls off does he get over it's been a while. I think he gets over the other side of the fence, but he like falls, he's he's completely incapacitated. Yeah. And that for some reason that stuck with me. But oddly enough, now when I think about it, so many sequences in this movie stuck with me. I watched it when I was relatively, I was assisted a little bit with other substances, marijuana and alcohol, a little bit. I was enjoying myself in that sense. It was 2 a.m, but like I said, I committed to this movie, and after I was done watching it, I think the next day or a couple days later, I told you about it, and then I rewatched it. You watched it. I rewatched it just to make sure I wasn't fooling myself, that I wasn't like somehow compensating after the fact. But sure enough, I've seen it 3 times now, and it is it constantly impresses me and even surprises me a little bit. I noticed things this last time that I watched it that I did not notice the first time, and it's a really good movie. And Andras, no one seems to know about this movie.
Well, we're changing that.
Yeah, so I think that's how the world would be wrong. There isn't a lot of there aren't like negative reviews or anything. It's not like people
don't even know to look at it's and I feel like in a weird now as I'm looking into Michael Rizzi's career, I feel like that's just the case with him.
Sure.
This is a film artist who is out there doing really exemplary work in a genre, like it's not even the genres that he's working in, but the genre of, I don't know, low production quality, high aesthetic value.
Right.
It's very punk rock, I think, in a way that really speaks to me. And while we've been doing this, I've been doing a little bit more research into the music. All of the songs were written by Karen Lawrence, who is the leader of a band called Blue by Nature. Mm-hmm. It features a former Aerosmith guitarist, Rick Dufay, and a guitarist named Fred Hostetler. I see no Reggie Bannister connection to this band, or particularly, unless Karen Grosso, who plays Laurie Pierce, is actually Karen Lawrence, which I don't think so, because I'm looking at pictures. They do not seem like the same person. If they are, then they're pulling off a massive hoax that it becomes immediately the most interesting thing about all of this. But I don't think so. God, I want to talk with this director and
this movie,
know the story of the music of this film.
All this stuff this is what this movie makes you feel. And this is why, again, I would love to be part of a Tubi episode of your podcast, because with the internet, we can get, and we watch everything, we can get anything, we can find anything. And we're all very used to it. It's very much how things are. But this movie is one of those things where there's so little information about it that you have that feeling that I think a lot of us have forgotten, this feeling, this experience of being like, of this mystery behind the mystery behind these people and the actors and such, and what their career. We don't have a mapped out timeline of all these people's careers and everything, because there isn't anything online. There isn't much online, and it's this kind of and when you find something like a discover, it's that feeling you used to get, you used to have all the time, where you'd just go to a video store and find this obscure movie and then be just blown away by it. That's not so much a thing anymore. But every once in a while something gives you evokes that same feeling, and this is that kind of movie. What a What a good flick, though.
Well, let's leave it with this, which is just think about this, people. I got the DVD for this, and the DVD booklet is just ads for other Roger Corman productions. And if you look at the credits of this film, Roger Corman is not credited as a producer. Although if you look on IMDb, he's an uncredited producer. Once again, I am struck with what would make a film something that Roger Corman would refuse to be associated with publicly.
Right, because it's
what is it about this film and this filmmaker that has Roger Corman, a noted supporter of independent filmmakers, lending his support in some way to this film, and yet not wanting to have his name on it? The story, I am so curious. But Justin, I'm just glad you introduced me to this film.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it. Yeah,
and we definitely should do an episode, just a celebration of Tubi episode. I've had several people. I think there is a big crossover between World Is Wrong fans and Tubi lovers. They had Mad Dog time before they didn't have Mad Dog time when we first covered it, but now they do, and so I feel like they're listening to this show, and so they know you love them.
Yeah.
And can you tell us, just before we head out, you're a filmmaker as well. We've worked on some big and sprawling and ambitious projects, and also sort of short, funny weirdness. Is there anything, do you want to tell the listeners of the World Is Wrong podcast where they can find you, your work, what they should be looking out for from you, anything like that?
Sure, I'll throw a couple things out there. If you want to, some of our more sprawling film that we worked on together. This is the first time you and I worked together, was something called Every Day is a Journey. That was a 6-part story, 6 episodes that were basically, they were done very similar to the old elementary school game Exquisite Corpse, where you draw part of a picture, you fold it, you have a couple lines coming out, and then the next person goes on from there and doesn't see the original drawing. Sort of, some people compare it to Telephone, which I think is inaccurate. But anyway, it was called Every Day is a Journey, and it was 6 directors that I did the first installment, and then the next guy saw the end of that and then continued the story, and then the next guy the same, and the next person the same. And you can find that on YouTube, on Rawstock. If you look up Rawstock Media Channel, Rawstock, Rawstock, Media, MEDIA. That's the channel. And there's a few other short films that I produced on there. And as far as anything new, the group of filmmakers that we all work with created something called Rawstock out here in Seattle back about 15 years ago. And it was a short film fest, a big party, a big rager, excuse to drink and have fun. But it was premieres of short films and some feature films that were a little bit more independent, a little bit under the radar. We got some great films. We got some great alumni from that film festival series. We did them 6 times a year. Haven't done those in a while, but we're bringing it back under the guise of the Blunt Film Fest. Rawstock is presenting something called the Blunt Film Fest at the end of April, and it's a cannabis-themed film event with short films from Seattle and California and Europe, and some great animation. And that's going to come up in a couple months, and we'll have a website up for that, and it would be www.bluntfilmfest.com. And if you guys are interested in being a part of these, watching these great kind of obscure shorts, some up and coming directors, that's going to be something we're going to have a digital release at the same time we do the live shows. Now that COVID's kind of lifted a little bit, we're going to do a live show again, but we're also going to have access online through Vimeo. I don't know if that's too much information, but that's something.
No. But I wanted to ask two questions. First of all, just to let people know, in between the Rostock Film Festival and the Blunt Film Festival, there was the Dive Bar Film Festival.
Yes, which still is a thing. Yeah.
Which is still a thing as well. So you kind of get the theme here. Justin, I introduced you as a filmmaker because that's what you are primarily. But we got to know each other as bartenders.
Oh yeah.
And there is a bacchanalian quality to everything you do.
There has to be.
Why your shows are very popular. But the other thing I wanted to ask was, because you mentioned some of the filmmakers, are there some the filmmakers that Rostock has shined a light on that people might be aware of?
Well, yeah,
I know that I got introduced to Calvin Reeder. Who are some of the other ones?
There's quite a few. Calvin Reeder is one of my favorite. David Lowery, who recently did The Green Knight. He actually attended a couple of the Rostocks back in the early days. He did some amazing short films that. One of my favorite films we ever got for the early days of Rostock. You know, we're going through a lot of submissions and a lot of interesting stuff that doesn't quite make it, but there was something called a catalog of expectations, I believe, and it was David Lowery's one of his first short films, and it was similar to is it Le Jetit, the film that 12 Monkeys was based on? Do you know what I'm talking about? Jeté? Where it's mostly just stills and voiceover. David Lowery did something similar to that, where it was basically about a little girl who found these fairies in her backyard. Very unnerving, very uncanny, sort of creepy, beautiful short film called The Catalog of Expectations. That's right. And that was our introduction to David Lowery. And he ended up going on to do Ghost Story, I believe, with Casey Affleck, and Ain't These Bodies Saints, which is a feature film with Casey Affleck that's quite good with, I forgot who else is in it. And then, of course, The Green Knight, which I saw in a theater this past summer, and I was just really impressed by what a good movie by a director that I would have admired anyway. And the fact that I got to meet him a few times and that we showed his early stuff. We premiered his first feature called Saint Nick. So he's one of those guys. I'm like amazed that we got to, because of this festival, we get to meet these visionary filmmakers. I do a lot of work with Jason Reed, who does documentaries, and some of you out there might have seen Sonic's Gate or Dirtbag. Dirtbag's about Fred Becky. Sonic's Gate is about the Seattle losing its pro basketball team. Mm-hmm. And they're riveting documentaries.
It's funny when you say a riveting documentary, I just imagine that it's like a documentary
about riveting, yeah, about
riveting, like Riveter, like Rosie the Riveter, like from the 1940s.
That'd be good. That's a good idea, Andras. We should maybe pitch that. Put together a deck, and then we'll pitch it. Riveting documentary, and it could be called a riveting documentary. Oh wow! All right. But yeah, I think David Lowery is the one that I kind of pat myself on the back a little bit.
What about the actor who does
Mitch McGee?
Well, him, but also the actor who was in the Moon Temple thing we did.
Oh yeah, okay. So Linus Phillips is a local actor that is also a filmmaker, an accomplished filmmaker. He did something called Ass Backwards. He did something a lot of people might have heard of called Walking to Werner, I believe. It's a documentary that followed, it was an autobiographical documentary where he basically goes off and searches for Werner Herzog. It's kind of hard to explain any more than that, but where he kind of, it's like he's wanders the earth. He wanders the earth like Kane from Kung Fu, but his goal is to meet Werner Herzog. And I'm not going to give any spoilers, But yeah, Linus Phillips, he, good filmmaker, really talented actor. One of my favorite local guys is Calvin Reeder for sure. Does great horror. By the way, Oregonian, his first feature is available on Canopy. If anyone wants to check out Calvin Reeder's work, there is Oregonian on Canopy. You can watch it. It's free because it's through the public library. Really great source of quality films, Canopy. Another good streamer. But Christian Palmer, local guy who directed you in a couple things, right? Mm-hmm. He is somebody that hasn't done a lot lately. He's involved in other back of the, more production right now, but he did something called William Never Married. William Never Married, and it's one of it's a very kind of exquisite squalor bummer of a. To me, I felt like it was a comedy. It's a really good movie. It's very evocative. Again, it was done on a very low budget, but he knows what he's doing. And like any filmmaker that knows what they're trying to get across and knows how to achieve what they're trying to get across, that's when it's something special. And it has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do with, money up to the point that you're able to get a camera and get actors and get the lighting right and all that, sure. But money does not equivalate to quality. And what you need is people that know what they're doing, like Michael Ricci, Christina Ricci's brother. No. Okay.
No. I love that you invented a word here.
Equivalent. I did invent it. I did event it. And you know what?
Yeah, you invented equivalation.
That was intentional. I was like, I don't know what the word I'm thinking of is, so I'm just going to say this new one. Equivalate.
That's really. I mean, it gets a lot in there. Sometimes those kind of mistakes get to this level of poetry that I love.
Yeah.
I love it. So it's so much better than whatever word you were initially going to use. And just in closing, there was a short film that you showed at one of the last festivals you did. I think it was directed by Christian Palmer, where he gets abducted. Is that available to see any place?
Okay, yeah. It's called The Procedure. And it's Christian Palmer produced it and acts in it. And Calvin Reeder, another guy we mentioned, directed it. And I think they co-wrote it. And it's just a perfect short film. No spoilers, obviously. We can't give any spoilers at all.
No.
I think you said as much as needs to be known as someone gets abducted at some point. It's called The Procedure. I believe it's available on Vimeo. And so Calvin Reeder has a page on Vimeo.
I'll put it if it's available, I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, there's also a sequel, which I don't know if the sequel is available, but it tops it. So yeah, guys, if you want to see a perfect short film, 3 minutes?
Yeah, it might be I hate to say the greatest because there's always going to be something else that you want to say the greatest about. But to me, there's a certain class that you're in where you are worthy of being called the greatest. And yes, I can't. There's whatever the greatest 3-minute film isn't better than this one.
It has everything.
Perfect.
It has everything. Yeah.
A perfect movie.
Yeah.
The amount of screen time to post film trauma is like it's phenomenal. Yeah.
It played at Sundance, and I think it was 2016 or it actually got into Sundance, this short, and
I think after that just movies should have surrendered.
See, this is the thing.
Two artists.
When people see this movie, you'll understand what we're talking about. But it was this, it's a short film, very 3 minutes long, low budget, but really gets across what it needs to do. Again, it was perfect. It was perfectly done, and it won some award, like judges, like the favorite, kind of like audience favorite type of award. But it was this kind of, and I saw a little bit of the live like press award where the judges are awarding this, and it's like they're almost in awe of the fact that it affected them so much that they were giving it this award. You know, it's like this thing deserves. You can't deny that it's an effective piece of filmmaking, much like Up Against Amanda, which is available on Tubi.
And you are actually talking about doing some sort of raw stock screening of Up Against Amanda. That's in the cards right now?
Yeah, this is a new development, at least in terms of a goal for. I would love to. Yes, I would like to. I'm going to make this happen. Let's say that I'm going to make this happen. I want to screen Up Against Amanda out here in Seattle for a live audience.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a great movie to watch in a theater with a bunch of other people having fun. Again, not a so bad it's good movie. It's so good it's good movie.
Yeah,
and I'm going to make that happen, and we're going to let's work on that together.
Let's get Michael Rizzi to come out and do a double feature of this and Terrorize,
which I haven't seen, so I got to check that out.
It's so. I'm only 20 minutes in, and
okay.
I'm having the same feeling of with this movie of like, I'm so not interested in this kind of movie, and I'm so riveted by this film.
Right.
Radio 8 Ball.
Andras here. When I'm not co-hosting The World is Wrong podcast, I'm hosting and producing the Radio 8 Ball podcast, where we answer questions by picking songs at random, like picking musical tarot cards. We've hosted musical divinations for people like John C. Reilly, Patricia Arquette, Tig Notaro, and Fred Armisen, and hosted over 200 songwriters, providing the randomly chosen answers from Inara George and Dan Byrne to Mose Allison and Alan Toussaint. That's Radio 8 Ball, all one word. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and download our app from the iTunes App Store.
Hey babies, it is me, the self-appointed Commissioner of Comedy, James Mattern. I just want to tell you that every week I'll be wherever you listen to podcasts with my show, The Commissioner of Comedy. I've been doing this, babies, for almost 20 years, grinding up and down, and I'm here to convey it to you about the do's and don'ts of the comedy scene, the proper etiquette, the unwritten rules, if you will. Whether you're just a fan, or you're a young buck starting out, a grizzled old vet, or just someone who wants to peek behind the curtain and see how the sausage gets made, tune into the podcast, The Commissioner of Comedy. This is what it's about. It's only on Paper House Network, and it's for you, babies. It's for you.
Dear listener, if you are just discovering our podcast, you can find all of our episodes on our website at theworldiswrongpodcast.com. You can also write to us at contact@theworldiswrongpodcast.com or follow us on Instagram at The World Is Wrong Podcast. And now, back to the show. Okay, Brian, you got to tell us, what is your connection to this film?
Well, totally crazy. So you pitched this movie as sort of like this lost, strange sort of erotic thriller from the early aughts. I've never heard of it. You had never heard of it until you watched it. I don't know anyone who's ever seen this movie. And so I was looking it up, just trying to find where I could watch it, found it on Tubi. But then I was just kind of looking through poster images. And I found one from China that, no joke, in China it was released as Up Against Amanda, Emmanuel.
Wait a second. Emmanuel, you're writing a book. You're actually writing a manual.
And I'm writing the book about all things Emmanuel, and I did not find this one yet, because I've been including all the retitles and all the ripoffs and everything, and this was one I did not know, because how would I have known unless I found the Chinese poster for this movie? It's crazy. So I was like, oh, well, not only do I have to watch this, but now I have to actually like think about it and write a little short synopsis for my book and probably put the poster in the book. So now not only are we selling this on this podcast, but like I will be pushing this movie in that book. So anyone who someday gets that book will learn about Up Against Amanda or Up Against Amanda Emmanuel, which is hilarious because there is no person named Emmanuel in this movie at all. No. That title doesn't really make sense. That retitle makes no sense. Because if it really was trying to be a ripoff, wouldn't you just call it Up Against Emmanuel? But it's Up Against Amanda, Emmanuel. And, yeah. But you know what? China, that's just how they wanted to sell this movie. Maybe it worked. Maybe enough, people saw it because of it in China. Oh, and on the poster, I don't know if you looked at the poster, but they took this scene from the hot tub and changed it to a bathtub for whatever reason. Like a hot tub wasn't sexy enough for China, so they said we're gonna put him in a nice, fancy looking like bathtub. Maybe they can make it seem like a classy, softcore Emmanuel sort of thing. Maybe hot tubs are too American, too trashy to sell it as an Emmanuel. So they superimposed their bodies in a bathtub. And then the wife is like looking down over them as if that happens in this movie at all. Like she looks like evil and jealous, like she's almost the bad guy. As opposed to just being in a delightfully easy, jazz band. So it's, yeah. So, there's a few things I want to talk about. I know that this episode, I was not part of the big part of it, but I feel like there are some things worth noting that you did not talk about that I'm kind of interested in.
Okay, well, but first of all, I believe you've already written your review.
Sure.
That's going to appear in the book. Would you share that with us?
Yeah, why not? Yeah, why not? And this is just sort of like, I'll rewrite this by the time the book comes out, but it is more or less. We've heard your synopsis of it, but this is sort of my version of it. Okay. Amanda, Justine Priestley, spends 8 years in an insane asylum after murdering her abusive stepfather, played by Dwayne Whitaker of Pulp Fiction. With the help of her lecherous doctor, she gets released to the world. Doc sets her up near his house, hoping that she'll be doped up and ready for extramarital affairs. Not interested in this plan, she dumps the meds and murders him with a curling iron to the butt, burying him in the backyard garden. Married dorky neighbor and Rolling Stone writer Richard, played by David DeWitt, has one of his security cameras pointed at Amanda's house. Now she must seduce him and get a full tutorial on his late 90s CD-ROM burglar protection. The relationship grows and things get very, very out of hand. Beer laced with deadly acid, intense voyeurism, a cute dog smashed with a shovel, a forced picnic, lots of people in hot tubs, including a moment when a full dinner is served. Priestley is having a great time as the unhinged psycho girl next door. Her practicing ad nauseum on how to poison a drink is a truly fascinating scene. The film has a lot of little parts filled with a who's who of It's That Guy. Richard's wife, Lori, performs in an easy-listening jazz band featuring on guitar Reggie Bannister of Phantasm. Daniel Roebuck and Willard E. Pugh play not-so-helpful cops. Chuck Williams is horny best friend Buzz. A late-to-the-game Fatal Attraction ripoff, shot on bad video with not great sound, heightened by its tight script and surprisingly good performances. The Chinese Emmanuel retitle makes no sense whatsoever. What does it even mean? So that's my review of Up Against Amanda.
I like yours better than mine. Yeah, yours should be in a book. Mine definitely is more of podcast material. So, yeah, so I've been waiting to hear what you think about this film since I first discovered it.
Yeah. Well, you kept telling me that I think you're like, I think you're going to like this movie, Brian. I think with your love of an After Last Season that you're going to be into this movie. And I don't think this movie's anything like After Last Season.
Actually, I think of it more of your love for like Andrew Stevens, Potboiler.
Yes. But I definitely had the same reaction as our guest, where like the first few minutes with those terrible credits. And I'm like, oh no. And then once I realized it was shot on like video and not like digital video, this looks like a camcorder. And I was like, oh no, this is going to be rough. And then the sound where like the music is loud, but the dialogue is kind of, it feels like it was just a mic from the camera. And I was like, oh no. But like within like the first 15 minutes, I was hooked. I really was like caught up in it as much as I would a big movie with a budget. Like there's just so many scenes in this movie where I was just like so fascinated by it, and also just caught up in the actual, like you totally forget about its deep, obvious flaws, and you are just wrapped up in the story. You really are, as much as you would in a Fatal Attraction or Hand That Rocks the Cradle. Like it's kind of amazing, and and like you guys said, a testament to the filmmakers and the actors for like, you had this movie that should have been garbage, could have been garbage. You could have totally filmed this in and threw some nudity in it, and Roger Corman still would have dumped it on, cable or whatever. But you actually all tried to make a good movie, and you did make a good movie, despite it not looking like a quote unquote real movie. And like, I think the moment I was really hooked was when Buzz comes by to wake up Richard just to tell him that a hot babe moved in next door. Like just woke him up like noon on a Saturday, just be like, hey, check this out. Check out the neighbor, man. And you're like, this is odd. But I mean, like the part where she puts the acid in the beer and is being passed around, like I was totally like on the edge of my seat, like truly. Just be like, oh my God, is she going to drink acid? Are we going to watch this poor lady? Like, sure, she's a jerk, but does she deserve to be like puking up blood on stage in front of her like nice little elevator music band? Like, no. And then when she passes it to Reggie Bannister, I'm like, no, don't do it. And then like I was just so fascinated by all the endless people looking at computers and like all that old just way computers looked in like the 90s. And like a lot of it, there's a lot of people just looking at kind of old technology, which was great. Long scenes of it. And I found it just so enthralling. And then, I mean, we can spoil this because you should have watched this by now. Amanda's death is brutal. It's a brutal death. I was like, are they really going to drive the car over her? And so it's like kind of schlocky and fun, but then the fact that her last memories are, what I can tell, is her just remembering being molested by her stepfather and then murdering him. And that's like the last thing she's going to think about before she dies, which is really brutal.
Yeah.
Like that's like that little hook at the end is like, oh God, that's like, and I think that's sort of the key to this movie is it's not, on the surface, it seems like it should be just some crap like that you've seen before. And in a way it kind of is in terms of like the plot, sort of like where it's like, oh, this is a knockoff of these kind of thrillers. And even the music kind of sounds like the Basic Instinct music a little bit. But the fact that like the character of Amanda is so good, so well written, so well acted, like, and she
so well filmed,
and,
like the scenes of her, like there's so much of her character that is just her looking at things, and the way it's framed, and like giving it that paranoid feeling.
And like I said, that scene where she's practicing pouring the acid in cups, like just by herself, is really eerie and great. And so it's like honestly up there with like a You Talking to Me Taxi Driver sort of thing. That is like like you're getting into the mind of a really disturbed individual as she's practicing how to pour this thing over and over again. And like a movie of this quality normally wouldn't show like that little character moment. It would just have her poison the beer or whatever, like, but having her just alone, having that strange moment is great. And I really like the part where, like, before they have sex in a hot tub, he tells this long story of meeting Frank Sinatra. That wouldn't be in a movie like this either. It's just like, it would just kind of go right into the seduction, but instead, just to kind of play on this guy being this total, like, music critic dweeb, just talk about, like, oh, then I met Frank Sinatra, and is telling this whole little story, which feels so believable. Like, this guy would totally do that to try to, like, impress a lady. Is how he met Frank Sinatra at a bar afterwards. This is like, I really fought trying to like this movie at first, and like I was just like was rolling my eyes at my wife, being like, I don't like, I think that maybe Andras is wrong, and I don't understand why. But I was like totally sucked in by the end of the first act. I was like hooked, and I will definitely recommend this to everybody.
It's crazy, right? It's like you say on the surface, it's like it's all through. Like every aspect of this is low rent.
Yeah.
And yet
it's great. And like if this was a movie with a big budget and like bigger actors, it would totally be a movie people would have liked or remembered, you know, like these kind of movies did really well for a while, and it isn't gratuitous like the Andrew Stevens ones that I love. Like those Shannon Tweed type movies are all about showing the skin and the sex, but the sex scenes and the nudity in this are few and far between and very tasteful.
You know what? That's one of the things that made me think of this. So we were talking, I don't know it's in a recent episode about how if a man filmed it, it would be one way.
In the cut episode.
Oh, in the cut.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about, there's a shower sequence in this film where it was totally an opportunity to ogle.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
And instead, it wasn't, but it was a film. But that shower sequence, if you watch it, it is like it's almost De Palma-esque in terms of how much cutting is going on in a shower scene in a movie like this without ever showing anything that you'd think that it would show.
Yeah.
That's the kind of trick this movie just pulls over and over again, right? Like right when you think it's going to be dumb or it's going to make the wrong choice, it just keeps making the right choices.
Yeah.
Even as Dick makes all the wrong choices.
And yeah, like this movie does, like, yeah, it's shot on video and it's done with, you know, a lot of the scenes kind of look like a thing shot on video, but there are shots that look great. Like that one where they're outside and the bridge is all lit up underneath with some color. Like,
yeah.
And I don't think they did that lighting. I'm sure that's just the lighting on that bridge, but the fact that they knew to point the camera that way made it seem like that they had the budget to light that bridge, or like, they definitely didn't get permission to film outside the Bellagio fountain or in that casino. I bet that was all done on the fly. But it's great because it's like it's the wife trying to talk to her husband, but the fountain's starting and the music's playing. It's too loud and they can't really understand what they're saying. And it's just like, it's in her just kind of brushing him off because he's calling her to try to tell her about this whole fiasco that happened with the cops trying to arrest him and everything. And that was great. Yeah, no, it's
like the shots on the like they get these shots on the freeway, which is clearly just a car. Like they're in one car filming the other car from behind, but you're getting rain in LA and you're getting those really. I love that lighting effect that is throughout the film.
Yeah,
with that sort of like the turning all these lights into stars, the way they shoot them, and that's throughout. But I think the first time they introduced that motif is in this car in the rain driving in LA. That's an expensive shot to get if you were actually trying to get that. Like if you produced that shot in the way that a normal movie would.
Yeah.
And somehow they got it. Yeah. It's like, just one after another. And of course, Buzz is the standout.
I know when he dies, it's so sad. You're like, oh, poor Buzz. He was just, and then there's that weird scene that I thought was going to lead to something, but didn't, where they have like the little public, the neighborhood watch meeting, and Buzz like talks about how like you don't make us lock our guns away, which I didn't know neighborhood could do that. And then Amanda volunteers to pass out the flyers for, what was it? Like
looking for the dog.
Looking for the dog
that she killed.
But it's just like, you didn't really need that scene. You could have had her just like, because she already had her kind of walk with Richard and be like, let me help you find your dog. But the fact that we pause to have this strange like neighborhood watch meeting.
No, we needed to establish that Buzz was a gun owner.
Oh, so but we couldn't have also just had him when things got weirder later be like, pull a gun out. But you need to know that he's not a bad guy with a gun. He just wants it to protect his wife or whatever. That scene was really good as well. And the fact that Richard's wife's band is like recording some album that no one will ever listen to. Like it's like, it feels like the way that band was written was that they were hoping to get like a real band or a rock and roll band, but then it came out the type of music that is played at like a steakhouse, like over the radio, like this really like inoffensive, just like dinner music. But the fact that the wife is like going on tour for like a month and in Vegas and she's going to make it and they're recording an album. It's like, who like, this is such a weird fantasy of like that kind of band. Like the people in those bands, and there's many people that do that. I think they would love this movie just because it's the only time I've ever seen that kind of band treated as if they were rock stars, where a recording contract person shows up and it's just so, and there's an audience, it's like a following they have every time they do a show. Amazing.
Yes, and I don't know if you know this, but most A&R people are like 70-year-old ladies.
So they got that right, I guess.
No.
No.
No. I mean, there may be, like, that person's assistant might be coming out to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, everything is hilarious. Do you feel like Justine Priestley should have been considered for a Best Actress in that year? That was the year that Julia Roberts won for Erin Brockovich. Other nominees were Joan Allen for The Contender, Ellen Burstyn for Requiem for a Dream, Juliette Binoche for Chocolat, and Laura Linney, You Can Count on Me. We could bump at least
one of them. They're all fine. They're all fine. No, totally. Like in a perfect world, if Hollywood wasn't a bunch of garbage, they would consider these kind of movies too, because that is a good performance. And not an easy performance.
Yeah,
and just also the fact
she didn't have a trailer. Like with this movie, she was drinking coffee with the crew.
Yeah,
this is like, to give a performance like this in a film like this.
Yeah,
is a lot of work. You have to be fully bought in.
And it's a hard performance to pull off because it could have been too like, I'm crazy. It could have been like too hammy. But she keeps kind of grounding it in reality, and every interaction that she has with everyone is totally believable. Like it never is like off the rails. Like this movie is off the rails, but the humanity part of it is always like on track. Like, which is also a hard trick to pull off. I think the director did a great job of that, because like this could have been everybody going wild with the plot going wild, but as the plot goes wild, the people keep bringing it back to reality. Like the guy who plays Richard is such a believable, like normally it isn't Andrew Stevens or Michael Douglas, like a really handsome guy. But in this one, the actor totally is like, I can see him getting wrapped up into this. I can see this happening. Like I can see like the part when he finally has to confess to his wife everything he did. And she jokingly is like, oh, would you sleep with Amanda while I was gone? And he just looks so sad in the doorway because he's like, yeah, that's exactly what happened. And it's good. And that actor's only been in this movie and like one other thing. Yeah, maybe he's the guy who sells those security systems, and he was like, you know how to already explain this. Can you just be in this movie? And I love that too. All the shots of just the security camera's point of view of like her in the backyard and like dragging the body and just like the empty driveways and yard. Like it was so good. And is the dog's name Wag? Like tail wag? W-A-G? It's what it sounds like they were saying.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's see.
It's an interesting name for a dog.
Does Wag have a credit in the IMDb?
I don't think so. But Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
well, I Michael Ritzy, we gotta pay more attention to him. He is
I want to watch
a really interesting film.
His
conundrum.
his version of Annabelle Lee from 2009 looks really good. I'm totally gonna check that out, like 100%. Like
Terror Eyes. Check out Terror Eyes. It's on I think YouTube.
And it
is amazing.
And then Soul Taker looks good too, starring Joe Estevez. Yeah. bring and I want to see the movie he made when he was 16 that's not listed on.
I know, yeah.
And then I guess he also made a documentary about like Spielberg and George Lucas while in film school. And like that sounds interesting too. Like I want to, and a lot of these aren't even listed on his IMDb. So what a humble man. Won't even list these other great things that he's done. And it says he's
go on. Sorry.
It says he's in Up Against Amanda as Dr. Ridley Michelson.
Maybe one of the doctors who's like giving letting Amanda go free. She has to speak to a panel of doctors.
Yeah.
It says in the IMDb credits that Gigi Bannister is an uncredited special effects person on this.
Oh,
so
that's got to be
something about that.
Reggie Bannister.
Reggie Bannister's wife or something. Yeah, Ritzy edited the film, wrote the film, directed it. It is a full-on...
Yeah, a total filmmaker, true auteur.
Yeah.
No, I'm really glad we did this. I'm glad you pointed me in the direction of this movie. I'm very excited to hear other people's opinions on it, because I feel like, this is just a thing you would never know is like dumped on Tubi, but that means everybody has access to watch this movie. So everybody should go watch this movie. It's free. Just do it.
Yeah, and I love that you had the same experience, because when Justin described it, that it was like the film was beckoning him and toying with him. Like, I really do feel like that is, it may be the best description of this film possible.
Yeah.
Like, if you love film, everything about you rebels against what you're seeing on screen.
Yeah.
And then it just flips on his head and you're like, holy shit. I mean, it's like watching a great juggler juggle really terrible things. It's just like it becomes this other experience, and that's the best. That's the best. So next week, we're not going to be talking about another film, because we're not done talking about Up Against Amanda. We're going to be talking with the director, the writer, the editor, the mastermind behind Up Against Amanda, Michael, not Ritzy, because since recording that last bit, I have been in touch with him, and I find that his name is actually pronounced Michael Risi, although he was happy to know that I was using the original Italian pronunciation, Ritzy, like Prizzi, of Prizzi's honor. But he is Michael Risi, I believe, yes, Michael Risi, and maybe he'll correct me and say it's Michael Risi, and then I'll just be wrong forever. But he will be joining us next week to talk about Up Against Amanda and his life in film. Brian, do you have anything you think I should ask him?
Oh, I mean, I think we asked a lot of questions during this episode, so as long as he listens to this, he'll know the things he needs to address. I'm mostly excited about sort of how did he, like, is that a real security system, or did he invent this with all the cameras? I want to know. Can I get this for my home? Is there Up Against Amanda security system that I can buy?
It's funny, because I think that when we talked about Up Against Amanda, that we were generally very, very positive about it. But then when I sent it to him, I was also aware that it might not sound as complimentary as I think we mean it. Because there's definitely a part of it that's like, man, this thing is so bad. How can it be so good? And I'm a little bit nervous, but also looking forward to talking with the person himself and finding out how it landed And
well, and it's just a good note. Like we've said this many times. We don't think it's so bad. It's good. If we like it, it's good.
Exactly.
And like and movies have their limitations with budget or camera or whatever, and that's okay. If the movie's good, it's good.
Yeah. And Up Against Amanda is good, and the person who made it is clearly a very special filmmaker, and we will be talking with him next week.
Yeah.
So so tune in next week, or just if you're listening, whatever, just move on to the next episode. That's what you'll find. And if you'd like to send in your thoughts or impressions of our conversation here, or of this film, or any of the films we covered, you can reach us at contact@theworldiswrongpodcast.com. You can find us on Instagram @theworldiswrongpodcast, on Twitter @worldiswrongpod. And of course, you can find pages devoted to every one of these episodes at our website, which is www.theworldiswrongpodcast.com. And I'm just noticing here, I'll post it in the show notes. Up Against Amanda actually has a website.
Wow.
UpAgainstAmanda.com. And I'm seeing here, and I'm feeling very sad. You can purchase, because I purchased the DVD, but I didn't purchase it directly from them. You can purchase your own copy of Up Against Amanda on either VHS or DVD for $14.99 plus shipping, and they will include a 17:11 poster.
Wow.
Of Up Against Amanda. I missed out on the opportunity to get the poster. I feel very bad about it, but you can write to them at P.O. Box 280387, Northridge, California.
That can't be functional anymore, right? There's no way that this is from 22 years ago. Well, maybe let's send money to it and see what happens. See what we get.
It's worth a $14.99 gamble.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Support Mike. Whatever Michael Ritchie is up to, it's got to be good.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this, Michael, the world is wrong. You should have, you should have been a contender. Except you are. You are a contender, and a contender for our love. And we say this to everyone at the end of the show, but today, let's just say it especially for you, Michael. Wherever you are, the world is wrong, and it's probably wrong about you.
Hello.
Gosh, I hope that wasn't about us. Your wife leaving?
Amanda.
Did she find out about us? Because I didn't tell her, I swear.
Look, I want you to understand something. You and me, we're over.
Over what?
We're completely different, okay?
As in opposites attract?
Look, I made a mistake, and that's all there is to it.
You mean by marrying her?
Stop calling me.
Why did you hang up on me, Richard?
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm AJ.
And we have a podcast called The Director's Wall,
examining a filmmaker's career, film by film. First up was M. Night Shyamalan, then Francis Ford Coppola. Who's next? Is there anything to this whole auteur theory? Find out on
The Director's Wall.
Subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or your preferred listening platform.